Pulled my four-wheeler in the garage, and as I did, I noticed this brownish liquid dripping from where the starter hooks up. So automatically that told me my water pump was probably shot. It's leaking into the counterbalancer oil and coming out the starter hole. So I have torn apart about 3 or 4 of these 350 to 400 liquid cooled engines already, so I know what it all takes. So this will be my first attempt replacing a water pump in the ATV, and I'm going to show you how I do it, and it'll be a learning experience for the both of us. Take a 1/2 inch socket, move that bolt. That sprocket comes right off. Get the chain out of the way so then we can get the bolts off this cover. Alright, so I got this brake linkage moved out of the way. Now I'm going to take all these bolts off the cover. This gun's a little overkill, but it works really well. Grab a 10mm socket. Now I can let you have the bolts pulled out. We'll pull that back. Get your Bendix gear in the way. Push this down a little further. Just gonna wiggle it. And there you have it. It makes it nice to use a gun like this because you can see the motor's turning a little bit while I'm doing this. That's your recoil cup for your starter rope. Pull the starter rope, it grabs on those teeth, spins the motor. The next step is you gotta pull that flywheel bolt. 22mm socket. Pull the flywheel bolt off. There's a washer. Okay, so I got a stubborn flywheel that won't come off. So I got my flywheel puller, and all I'm doing is turning the wrench a little bit and tapping it. Might have to use a little heat. We got a screwdriver shoved in here so it does not spin the motor as I'm doing this. Put a little pressure on it. By tapping around it. Oh. Come on, baby. The reason you want to do this is you don't want to put all your pressure on it because you could break the magnets inside of the flywheel. She's being stubborn, so I'll try a little heat. You do this, make sure you don't have any gas leaks. You don't want to start your motor on fire. See what gives first, the flywheel or my washer that's about to break. Alright. After heating it up, she just popped. Yeah, got my screwdriver stuck in there. If my screwdriver not moved, it's probably would have been a lot better. There we go. Inspect the inside of your flywheel, no damage. Stator. And here's that Bendix gear for your starter. You can move that out of the way. Next thing you're going to want to do, pull your bolts for your starter. Just the two that hold them in there. What you're going to have to do is eventually pull this outer pan off to get to the water pump. Okay. The 350 and the 400s on the stator, there's a timing mark. There's a little arrow right here on the case, and if there's no marking on the stator plate, just make a little mark. Oh yeah. Now that I drew on the mark, I can see the actual mark engraved into the stator. So when you put that back together, you line up those two marks, and then your timing will be back to where it was. Alright, I'm going to show you a little trick to get these stubborn stator bolts out. Probably shouldn't do this, but I use a little needle nose locking pliers. Clamp on there, because you're just going to strip the heads out if you use a screwdriver bit. Just give it a little crank, break loose. And you can take your screws out. Okay, so after you got your motor mount loose down here, you want to loosen the clamp on your hose going from the bottom of your head down to the pump, and you want to take this nut off. Now this nut needs a special tool. Looks like that. It's got little notches in it. It locks in there. You got special teeth in there. You can take a punch and try turning it, or a screwdriver. I went the extra mile. I do a lot of motor work, so I bought one of these. Now, the threads on that are opposite of what they would be. So counterclockwise threads. So to spin it off, you want to go clockwise. My tool here. Coming. Going clockwise, like you'd be tightening it. There you have it. And if you can see that, my seal's leaking. So there was it's all wet there. This is what that odd nut looks like. Then you want to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those bolts out. It's 12 millimeter. There's 1 or 2 oddball ones, so a little bit longer. I should make that 2. 2 that are the same size. Do those 2. And a couple shorter ones. The next thing you want to do is take 1, 2, 3, those 4 nuts off. And then 2 bolts. And those should be 10 millimeter. These nuts actually hold your water pump on from the inside. You can't see them yet. I'm curious to see what kind of a mess I'm going to have once I move that pan. Got your counterbalance oil and probably got coolant mixed in there. Should be ready to pull. Keep in mind you're going to have to wheel on that hose while you're pulling everything out. That's probably going to end up hitting the frame. So this is where it gets interesting. Okay, so your next step is going to be unbolting your one motor mount bolt that bolts to this outer pan. It's 9/16. Alright, let's give it a go, see what happens. Loosen up my radiator hose first. That goes there, that stays there. There we go. Just pry it on that hole where the stator comes in. So you got the stuff coming out. Yeah. Okay, so I loosened the upper motor mount. And now I got this loose. Hoping I can try and pull at the same time. There she comes. That's where your water pump goes, your impeller. Okay, so my gear that drives the counterbalancer came out with the pan. The last step would be to do, take your impeller off. That's where this gun comes in handy. 10mm bolt. Let me do this. This is how your water pump looks after you pull it out. Get your impeller. And you've got a seal. So the seal likes to go bad in the center. This one's pretty dried out. A lot of times the coolant will leak through there. And also you've got your bearing on the back side. What happens is your bearing will go bad. So you'll want to replace that, your seal, and your gasket before you put it back together. And that should solve your problem as far as your water pump leaking. Alright, so I spared you guys the fact of me putting the pan back in, because you wouldn't have been able to see anyway, because I was kind of pushing on the motor, lifting up. Popped her back in. I made sure I had the water pump in, the new seal, and put my nuts back on, put my bolts back in, and now I need to torque them to spec. And that is one installed water pump with the engine in the ATV. Hope you enjoyed my video. Hopefully you learned something. I did too. It's the first for me. So enjoyed making the video. Thanks.